So, dear ladies and gentlemen, a big welcome to the 56th Grow Learn Connect webinar, the return on investment and return on expectations of coaching. Today's webinar is brought to you by the IFC Grow Learn Connect program with support from the government of Luxembourg and, of course, by our passionate, dedicated, highly professional master trainer and coach, Adaora Ayoade. Before we begin, as always, I must remind you that this session is being recorded and we will post the recording on the Grow Learn Connect platform. With that, I would like to remind you that even now you can access previous recordings from our previous webinars on the Grow Learn Connect platform. So you can simply go to growlearnconnect.org, click on Learn, and then choose webinars in English or in French, whatever language you prefer. Or you can simply scan the QR code now and you will be taken to the webinar page. If you are sending questions or making comments in chat, please make sure that you send them to everyone unless you target a specific individual. If you would like to say something, we would be more than happy to unmute your mic. So simply raise your hand virtually and we will give you the floor. With that, I would like just to make some announcements. So first of all, the Grow Learn Connect platform now also exists on the World Bank Group Open Learning Campus platform. So both platforms, sort of Grow Learn Connect and OLC, will be running in parallel. So if for some of you it's more convenient to follow us there, please log in with your credentials and find us as Grow Learn Connect, capacity building program for learning and development professionals. Our program recently launched a couple of self-paced courses, and again, I would like to take an opportunity to take a moment just to mention those to you. So these self-paced courses, as you can guess, are available 24/7. They're completely free of charge. This one specifically is called Analyzing Needs and Determining Strategies to Improve Performance. So just like a doctor must diagnose the condition before prescribing any kind of treatment, learning and development professionals must first diagnose root causes before developing strategies. So this is what this course is about diagnosing root causes and developing strategies. This course is hosted on, again, Open Learning Campus. You will need to log in with your credentials and take a course. The course consists of about, I believe, 7 modules, so it can take about, 7-8 hours to complete, but it's absolutely worth it, and I think it's actually a must for all learning and development professionals. So please sign up and complete the course. And the same is true about the other self-paced course that I wanted to mention. It's called Coaching for Improved Performance. So this particular course will not give you advanced knowledge of coaching techniques. It's more of an introductory course, and yet it will introduce you to valuable coaching techniques that you can incorporate in your facilitation, in developing strategies for your clients. So please consider taking this course as well. Just a quick announcement for those of you who may be joining us from Ghana. So if you are an aspiring trainer, or if you would like to take your facilitation skills to a new level, please consider joining Margaret Jackson, our master trainer, for the in-person facilitating face-to-face learning course, which is scheduled for March 2026. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome back our presenter, Adaora. So Adaora Ayoade is an executive and leadership coach. She is also the CEO of Easy37 Solutions. They have an amazing team. It's always a pleasure to work with Easy37 Solutions. So Adaora is a past president and board member of the International Coaching Federation, Nigeria chapter, and she has more than 20 years of senior level experience in facilitation, team development, and coaching. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Adaora. Adaora?
Thank you very much, Anna. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. So I know Anna had already welcomed us. So I want to just check who is in the audience. So Anna, thank you so much for that introduction. It's really appreciated. So I'd like to ask if you can please put in the chat, are you a coach? Are you a trainer? Or are you another professional? Please can you put that in the chat box? And while that's coming in, and I'm just going to check with you, please, if you can see my slides.
Yes, Adaora, I confirm that, and I hope that all participants can see it as well.
Awesome. So thank you, Ihoma, a coach and a trainer. Thank you very much. Ajuma is the coach. Thank you. Sri Laka Kumar, I'm a coach. Samson is a coach. Okay. Thank you for putting that. A trainer and a coach. Primrose, trainer and a coach. Lovely. All right. So you are in the right place. And I'm so pleased. I'm really pleased to welcome you to today's session on measuring impact, ROI and ROE of coaching. And you know, it's so interesting because a lot of people, especially a lot of coaches, sometimes rely on faith-based coaching. What do I mean by that? They believe it works because they can feel the difference. But you know what? In a boardroom, feelings are not going to protect the budget. Data is what will. So today we're going to shift to fact-based coaching. We want to measure not just to justify our existence as coaches or professionals, but to also align the coaching outcomes, whether it's improved delegation or empathy. We want to align it directly with the organization's hardest goals, such as retention and speed to market. So that's what we want to do today. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to check in with us on how we are going to engage our norms. So I encourage us to please bring a positive mood into this virtual space. And then really come with an open mind. You may be an experienced coach who has been using the ROI and ROE for decades. Beautiful. Come with an open mind. You may pick up something else. And why do I say that? Because of the third norm that says be ready to share so everyone learns. And I always use the example of a fruit. And I say, if I have a fruit and you have a fruit and we exchange, guess what? We still only have one fruit each. But if I have an idea and you have an idea and we exchange, we now have two each. And so please be ready to share. I always say you will share if you care. So I'm expecting us to share today. And then of course, if you want to speak, just raise your hands. I believe Anna has touched on that. And would there be anything else you think we need to consider along our journey today? I'm going to pause for a moment to see if anything else comes in the chat box. Is there anything else you think we should consider to make our time together really worthwhile, meaningful, fruitful, and enjoyable? Okay, so nothing else. So I believe we're good to go. And so I'm going to ask us to use the emojis to give us a thumbs up if you're happy with these norms and if you're in alignment with them. Give us a thumbs up, a smiley face, something. Make your presence felt. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Ajuma. So let's proceed. What are we going to be looking at? Thank you, Sandra. So 3 things. We're going to keep it simple. The first one is we're going to do an introduction. Thank you, Jemumu. Thank you so much. You can see the comments, the thumbs up coming in. Thank you. So let's look at our journey map. The first is introduction to ROE and ROI in coaching. What is it? And what we want to achieve in terms of our objective is to be able to explain the distinction between return on investment, that's ROI, and return on expectation, that's ROE, as measures of coaching impact. So that's the first objective for today. The second thing we want to do is to consider the strategic shift We want to have a strategic shift while we measure coaching ROI and ROE. And what do we want to achieve at the end of our session today is to be able to identify the importance of measuring ROI and ROE of coaching initiatives. So that's the second objective. The third one is the coaching for performance ROI. We're going to be looking at two frameworks. So you're going to leave with a nice takeaway today. The first one is the coaching for performance ROI framework. And the second one is the well-being and engagement framework. So what we want to achieve is that by the end of our time, you would have been able to explore these frameworks and metrics for assessing the financial and the non-financial results of coaching programs. So let me check in with you. What insights are you hoping to discover today? Please put in the chat box. We're going to use the chat box a lot. We are going to be using the chat box and working with that a lot. So what insights are you hoping to discover today? You're going to be investing an hour and a half of your time. For what? Let's get clarity on that. Okay, thank you. Ghislaine, I hope I pronounced your name properly. How to measure ROE. Interesting. Okay, you're in the right place. Sandra, it would be interesting to find out how to determine the ROI and ROE of coaching. This is something that has been on my radar. Beautiful. And then Srilika Kumar says ROI on coaching. And Femi Odelusi says practical steps in measuring and improving both ROI and ROE. Okay, great. So you are in the right place. Thank you for sharing what your expectations are. So let's start by just setting the stage with what they are. Now, on the left side of the screen, we're going to look at ROI because there's this duel between ROI, ROE, ROI, ROE. Well, let's look at ROI first of all. What does it mean? Return on investment. What's the focus? Financial and business outcomes. What's the typical question that's asked when it comes to ROI? Did we make more money than we spent? And you find that a lot of times people would really engage this with their sales team to say, okay, what was the turnover, last year or 2 years ago? And then since we brought in coaching, what have we found out the turnover to be? And how do we measure? What is the formula? The formula is the last bullet on the left side of the screen, which is we're looking at the percentage return. That's the net benefit divided by the cost of coaching multiplied by 100. That's the formula. We're going to look at it in more detail. We're going to dive deeper as we go through the presentation. That's ROI. In simple terms, high level. Let's go to ROE on the right side of the screen. When we say ROE, we're referring to return on expectations. Please note, ROE can be used for as an acronym for other things, but in this context, it's being used for return on expectation. So what's the focus? Things like behavior. Organizations want to understand what are the behavioral shifts. To measure things like culture. Are we actually growing in terms of inculcating a coaching culture? Flourishing. Are our people flourishing? These are some of the focus areas. We're going to look at that in more detail. What are sort of questions you will find being asked? Things like, did we build the leaders we need? Did we build the leaders we need as a result of the coaching? Because that might have been an expectation. So did we or did we not? And you'd find that ROE is typically used when you're looking at leadership presence, resilience, well-being, etc. And the metric is alignment with pre-agreed behavioral shifts. So before you even start talking about measuring, it means that you have some pre-agreed behavioral expectations that you've aligned with the stakeholders on, and so you now want to see if anything has shifted at the end of the coaching. So, still looking at ROI. Now, there's been so much research, and on the screen, we're looking at the research that was carried out by the International Coaching Federation, which is the leading and largest body of professional coaches globally, and the Human Capital Institute. And it showed that coaching, in terms of ROI, had an average ROI of 221%. It showed that the median ROI for coaching was 7 times what it was invested. In other words, for every $1 spent, companies typically make about $7 on average back. That's what it means. Other data points that emerged from the research done was that coaching resulted in 51% higher revenue than organizations that did not inculcate or embrace coaching. And then finally, another data point that was extracted was 62% increase in highly engaged employees. So these are sort of ROI metrics that the International Coaching Federation and the Human Capital Institute have extracted from the research that they've conducted in terms of ROI. So we're going somewhere. Let's look at ROE before we move on. And again, in a similar vein, the International Coaching Federation Global Coaching Client Study, because they do this study every 2 years, they engage PricewaterhouseCoopers and they run surveys globally. And so in the recent study, the outcomes included many non-monetary enhancements that coaching delivered on. Things like improved communication, stronger relationships, better leadership, and organizational gains. So they show that, look, in terms of ROI, in terms of ROE, coaching delivers. But then, are we measuring it? Are we measuring? So I'm going to ask us to use the chat box for this. When you are looking at the success of your coaching program, let us know in the chat box. Would it be A, what's your goal? Are you looking for whether it proves that it gave a financial return? Would it be B, assessing the impact on the people and culture? Would it be C, understanding both? Or is it that you don't even measure at all? Let's use the chat box and get some feedback on this. Okay, Adaora just says understanding both. Thank you. Sandra is also looking at both. Awesome. So understanding both the financial and people impact. Brighton, thank you. You're also looking at both. All right. So I can see this is very consistent. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Sade. Thank you, Ajuma. Thank you, Primrose. All right. So you're looking at both. So you're looking at the right thing. But guess what? When we look at both, consider what you have on the screen. Consider what you have on the screen. On the left, you have what it is that we expect from the human capital. And there are a number of little emojis. I want to know how well you can see my screen. I want to know what are some of those little emojis you can see there. I'll give you a hint for one. One of them is a heart. What else can you see? Those little emojis on the left. You can see a brain. Thank you. You can see empathy, connection. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, well-being. Absolutely. So to show the business value of the people-related initiatives like coaching, you need measurement. So what does measurement do? It links the improvements in the human capital to the financial results. So to how you're feeling in your brain, how you're feeling in your heart, the empathy, all of that you have put in the chat box, it links it to the financial results. It turns the people outcomes into business outcomes. So measurement is key. So yes, you have the human capital on the left and you have all those colorful icons, but on the right, you have the financial outcomes, the revenue. You can see the arrows, the profits, productivity, and the overall business performance. So measurement is the bridge. So what does this mean? For us to show the value, the business value of those people-related initiatives, you need measurement. You need measurement. Yeah? So this is a visual reminder that measurement is the connector between those amazing things you're doing with the and the profit that the business is looking at. So let's take a deeper dive into why it matters. Now, there's been a lot of research that shows that organizations that track coaching results are able to report, we saw it earlier, 7 times a median ROI, and so on. We can see the data is there. So let's see why we need to continuously do this. And if you look on the screen, you have 2 sides. This is speaking to why we need to do this. On the left is the problem. The left speaks to the fact that people sometimes view coaching as a perk rather than a profit and loss item. Many organizations still view coaching as nice to have. It's a good benefit. It's a developmental perk that we're going to offer, rather than a strategic investment that drives measurable business outcomes. And the reason why I say it's a problem is because when it's perceived in that way, you'll find that executives and leaders will not fully support it. And then, of course, that bridge will not be there. The measurement piece will not be there. And a lot of opportunities will be missed. Then, or even the beneficiaries may feel good, but they may not be able to articulate it. And of course, they should be able to articulate it and proudly speak about their growth, their learning, the impact post-coaching. So what do we need to do? We now need to shift to the right side of the screen, which is we need to first of all demonstrate value. So this is the foundation of both our ROI and ROE conversation. We need to demonstrate it. We have to shift the conversation from vague feelings to concrete data. We need to align the goals. This is a critical link to business impact. Let me share with us something that happened to me. I got a request for coaching, and the organization said, I want you to coach this leader, Coach Adaora. And this is the problem. That is the problem. This is the problem. And they said, this is what the person cannot do. So I had to ask them to please, let's take a step back. You're talking about what the person cannot do. With coaching, we're looking at future focus, concrete goals, positive outcomes. So we don't stay in what is not happening. We talk about what we want to happen, and then we align that with the organizational goals. That's the golden thread. So this is very, very key. So we have to tell them, I'm sorry. The engagement letter you sent us, you need to reword it. You need to take some time and consider what the goals are for this engagement, how they align with the business objectives. So that golden thread is key. Please take note. Then another shift that we want to take place is to build credibility. Yes, we are credible when we can show that coaching goals are aligned to business outcomes and that positive change is happening. We build credibility with key stakeholders. And this is key for coaches. You want to stay in business, you want to show credibility, not just testimonials, right? But you also want to have some hard data. So the last bullet there shows secure resources, which is really the demonstrated value, clear alignment, and hard-earned credibility. So here you're making a business case for a strategic resource, for them to invest. But one thing I want you to take away from this slide is that when the organization does the last bullet, that means when they secure, when you secure resources from them, you want to be able to build credibility. You want to be able to ensure that the aligned goals, there's a shift there so you can demonstrate value. So please look at it almost like a cycle, yeah, which proves ROI and ROE. So please put in the chat box. As you look at the two coins on the screen, almost a rhetorical question. Which side is more important to you? Femi says the top one. Is it really, Femi? I think definitely you had the answer. Absolutely. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Abigail. Both. Yes. Both are equally important. Thank you, Jemima. Thank you, Ekoe. Absolutely. Neither is better than the other. We need both. Equally important. Thank you, Samson. Both, but ROI is more measurable. We're going to find out today, Shikra. Sri Lanka. I hope I'm getting that right. So, the answer is here. Again, we're looking at this duel of ROI versus ROE. Sri Lanka says, yeah, you know, definitely ROI is measurable and so on. But guess what? You have on the left your hard returns, cash. On the right, your human returns, the ROE. They need to be balanced. You want both. Okay? So we don't want to get trapped debating. Should we measure people? Should we measure money? We want to measure both. So if, for instance, you had a coach, you know, to stop maybe a leader from micromanaging, and then they eventually stopped, it's a high return on expectation, even if you can't immediately put a dollar sign to it. So there are formulas for us to manage and calculate the dollar bit, but we also need to tell the story. So both are very, very important. So I see things coming up in the chat box. I want to make sure. But does ROI not depend on ROE? Good question. Interestingly, we're going to find out as we go along. Thank you, Gwenga. Does ROI not depend on ROE? You're going to see how we're going to calculate ROI. And then you're going to see how we're going to calculate ROE and see that they can exist independently. So one does not depend on the other. But let's proceed, and then you can see this for yourself. So I want to know from you, how do you currently measure the impact of your coaching? I really like that. You know, we've been very engaged, we've been communicating, and like I said, when you share, it means you care. So we have so many caring people here. Let us know, how do you, in your organization, currently measure the impact of coaching? Adebola, I see your comment. Sandra, I see your comment. Thank you. So I'm going to pause for us to give feedback on this question. Okay. So Gloria says feedback from the coachee, how they achieved their goals. So that's how you do your measurement. Thank you so much, Gloria, for sharing that. We'll get another person to also share. Okay, Ajuma is more or less echoing what you've said, Gloria. Ajuma says feedback from the client. Okay, and so who is your client, Ajuma? Is your client the coachee? Is your client the sponsor? So when you say client, I just want to be really clear for the benefit of those in the virtual space who, you know, may not realize that you have the sponsor and then the coachee. Johanna says evidence of change of behavior. Thank you. Sandra says we take data from level 1 to 5. Okay, Sandra is going into Kirkpatrick. Hey, Sandra, great. Okay, thank you. That's how Sandra measures all the way through. So she's looking at the reaction. She's also looking at the learning. She's looking at the behavior. She's looking at the results. All the levels of the Kirkpatrick model, she's bringing it in here. Okay, Ajuma says both, actually. Thank you. So Ajuma is measuring feedback from the coachee and from the sponsor who is paying for the coaching. So Adeonju says closing the loop between the coaching goals and the desired outcomes and actual results. Excellent. Adeonju, you've seen my slides. We're going somewhere together today beautifully. Tekla says pre and post assessment of specific competencies. Thank you. Absolutely. Especially if you're using things like 360s. You have your competencies at the start, you take your data points, You do it, you administer your 360 at the end, and you see what the shifts are pre and post. Our last webinar, my last webinar here that I spoke on was, to do with 360. So that is a great tool to supporting what Tekla is talking about there. All right, Ekoye says the coaches change in behavior and mindset, and Samson said with net profits, cost reductions, etc., that are measurable before. Thank you so much, Samson. So you can see how Samson says before and after. So before, don't start coaching unless you have determined what the goals are, what the baseline is, what the benchmark is, what the desired outcomes are. Thank you. Okay, so let's proceed. So I'm so excited. You're measuring, but let's carry on and see how a couple of frameworks can support what you're doing. Okay, so we're going to start with the ROI framework. Now, stay with me. There is an incredible resource, and I'm going to be sharing with you references at the end of this presentation. There's an incredible resource, Coaching for Performance. And in that resource by John Whitmore, one of the founding fathers of coaching, he shares a very simple formula called the Coaching for Performance ROI. And what does it do? It measures the impact of behavior change on the bottom line. So there's behavior change. You want to know what's the behavior change? What's the impact on the bottom line? So the second bullet tells us that it refers to the measurable return. So measurable is the key word there. And of course, return is also a very significant word to look at. What is the return? What is the measurable return a business or an individual gains from a coaching engagement? Typically, you will find that this is evaluated through improvements in productivity, cost reduction, revenue growth, employee retention, etc. And that's why when I got that request this week to say, please come and coach this person, this is what they're not doing, we said, no, we can't measure not doing. We can't measure what is not working. We want to measure what is working, what you want to work, and where you are in relation to where you're going. So, measurable return. And the last piece, the Coaching for Performance ROI enables the sponsor, the person putting down the money, of the coaching to see the impact of the investment on the organization. So, I said stay with me because I'm going into an example. Now, this is a measurement method, and we're going to look at this over a few slides. After implementing a coaching program for one of its team leads, an organization recorded a reduction in costs valued at $1,500. But maybe to use dollars, I think it's more universal. So this is just an example. So don't forget, the organization, after implementing the coaching program, recorded a reduction in its costs. So the costs reduced by $1,500. Now, to ensure a realistic assessment, the leaders in the organization were asked to estimate how much of this cost reduction improvement would you say was directly influenced by coaching? And they attributed 60% of the result to the program. Now, this second bullet is an art, it's not a science, okay? So you can ask a number of different stakeholders, what percentage would you attribute this success to for coaching? And they say 60%. The last paragraph there says that with the coaching investment totaling $450, I'm keeping it simple. Let us say if they had 3 hours of coaching at $150 each, $450, we can now calculate the ROI using the net benefits attributable to coaching. So we're going somewhere, don't get lost. So we're going to use this 5-step measurement method to support us in calculating ROI. Firstly, establish your baseline. So going back to your question, you want to first of all understand the qualitative measures. Okay, so let us take delegation. Rate the performance outcome of this person on a scale of, say, 1 to 10 before the coaching intervention starts. That's step one. Step two, I'm going to take this deeper as we go to the slides. Step two then says, you then do another post-coaching remeasurement. If it was a delegation and the person was rated, say, a 3 before, at the end of the coaching engagement, maybe 3 months, 6 sessions, for example, what would the measurement reveal? That's step one, step two. Step three. Now you want to calculate the financial impact. Was there a revenue? Was there cost? Was there productivity gain? Was there a cost saving? Now, before I move on, I want to check that we're still together. I ask you to please stay with me. What did I say in the example? Was it in the example shared that I said there was a $1,500? Was it revenue increase, productivity, or cost saving? What did I say it was? Which of those three? Revenue, productivity, or cost saving? What was on the previous slide? Cost reduction. Thank you so much. Wenga, I'll tell you one thing. I saw your comment. This looks more like a subjective assessment. Can we have a more objective means of attributing the contribution of coaching to the cost reduction? So what you have to do, Wenga, stay with me till we get to the end, and I will take any questions you have around this. Because the truth of the matter is, you are going to need to engage with stakeholders. You can decide to use, there's so many means of doing this. There's trend analysis. Maybe for the past 4 years, that particular manager's department has not had a cost saving. So you look at trend analysis. You need to ask a few people. So you're going to have to isolate a number of factors to establish what can be some form of an attribution to coaching. Even if we look at the literature on this by John Whitmore, it says it is more of an art than a science. But you're not going to ask one person, what percentage will you attribute? You ask a number of different stakeholders. Yeah? Thank you, Benga. I'm pleased you see. You have to use trends. You can't just use isolation. No. Trend analysis, etc. Then we're moving on. The fourth step, please don't get lost. We're talking about estimating an attribution percentage. So that's what I just explained. And then you go to the last one, compute your ROI. So what's the monetary value multiplied by the attribution? Then you divide it by your coaching cost. I've used some very, very simple numbers. So let's look at them in more detail. And I've kept it simple. This is not a 1 hour, something we can really go to the depth of in 1 hour, but I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. So I'm using that delegation example. And this exact example you can get in the literature by John Whitmore. And he says, an area of work that was looked at was delegation. With this particular manager, they recognized that they needed to work on his ability to delegate his work. When they started the coaching, he was rated a 3 for delegation. After the coaching, he was then rated an 8. So what was the behavioral change? A few of you have talked about how you get the behavioral change from the coachee, from the sponsor, and so on. The behavioral change is that the person is now delegating instead of getting involved with everything themselves, which means that they can now hand projects and tasks to their team on a daily basis and focus on more strategic projects. What impact did this have on the business? There was enthusiasm and development of the team that was increased. There was productivity improvement. We spoke about the cost savings that was identified, that was fed back to this leader. And then thirdly, there was more time spent on new project initiatives. So this slide just talks about step 1 and step 2 of that 5 steps. Gloria, I'm sorry. I've tried to keep it so simple. You're running away from math. If I've lost you, please let me know. I hope I haven't lost you. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. Yeah? So the first thing you do for step 1 and step 2 of that formula we looked at on the previous slide is qualitative assessment first. After you've done that, thank you, Gloria, you then move to step 3 and 4 of that formula. Now, we're still with delegation. So we said that the monetary impact, we said that the area of work is delegation, ability to delegate. The monetary impact is the identification by the team member of potential logistics savings, say 1,000 to 2,000 per month, for instance. So you calculate it, and you can work with the finance team, you can work with leaders, you can work with stakeholders. You can't do this alone. Reduction in cost by an average of $1,500 per month. Confidence level. You get your confidence level by asking and isolating as needed. And in this case, the confidence level that was attributed was 60%. The return after 3 months was your 1,500 saving times 60% confidence level, which is $900. We've not gone to ROI yet. We're still looking at, okay, what's even the return? Having invested this $450, we're going somewhere. So there was a cost saving of $1,500, 60% confidence level that was attributed to coaching based on taking the time to get feedback. We now multiply that, we get $900 as a net. Let us move on. So here is the ROI calculation. The ROI calculation, and this is in the literature as well by John Whitmore, it says it's the sum of the monetary value times the confidence level divided by the cost multiplied by 100. The coaching investment cost, remember I said it was $450. Remember that the monetary value, the cost saving was $1,500. So when you use the formula, you take that monetary value of $1,500, you multiply by the confidence level, you get $900. You divide it by the cost, and don't forget the cost was $450. You get 2, which means that your ROI is that figure times 100, which is 200%. And what does that mean? It means that for every $1 the organization invested in coaching, it gained $2 in cost saving attributable to the coaching program. A lot of people will not take the time to do this. It's like, am I going to do this? But you know what? Just recently, the International Coaching Federation had some awards, Coaching Impact Award. And those organizations that were able to track their ROI and track their ROE and demonstrate the impact on the business, on the individuals, they were winning awards. And they were, of course, it will help their employer brand. So there's a lot of intentionality needed to take our time to calculate the ROI. So before I go on to ROE, I want to check that I haven't lost everybody. So can you just give me a thumbs up if you're still here, and if you feel, let's continue, we're going somewhere. If I've lost you, give me a thumbs down. If you're still here, give us a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. Yuri, I believe you're going to get the slides. Thank you, Bolande. Thank you, Abigail, Ifoma, Daniel. Thank you. Okay. Let me just see. Yvonne. Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Seen that. All right, super. Now, this is the easier part, the ROE. We'll need the recording. Hope we get it. So Anna will have to respond to you on that. I believe you will get the recording. So Anna, should I pause and let you respond?
Yes, I confirm that everyone will get a recording. Thank you so much for asking.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. Now we're going to look at another framework. Okay, so the first one was to do with ROI, coaching for performance. And like I said, I'm happy to work with anyone to dive deeper into that. This one now is the well-being and engagement framework to calculate ROE. They're different frameworks. I'm just sharing with us 2 nice, simple ones. This framework, so the first framework I shared with you, I mentioned to you, was by John Whitmore. And this framework is by Anthony Grant of the University of Sydney, and it's focused on human flourishing. It's focused on human flourishing. That's what this framework is. So let's go. I'm curious to know, if you can please put in the chat box, based on your own organization's current priorities, which non-financial outcome would you say is the most urgent focus for coaching? I'll just pause while you share. If there was one priority That's non-financial. What would you say it is? That's the most urgent focus for coach. It could be an organization you work with. It could be an organization that you work in or with, and as an internal coach, an external coach, as the case may be. So Gloria, Johanna says motivation. Tekla says attitude. Okay. Let's get one more before we proceed. Okay, Coach F.A. says leadership readiness. Aha, okay. Yvonne says behavior. Winga says staff engagement. Thank you. All right. So this well-being and engagement framework measures return on expectations by evaluating how coaching affects well-being and engagement. So it could be for your organization something else, but in this particular case, it's looking at well-being and looking at engagement. So what it does, it recognizes that sustainable performance requires both, not just financial output. When you have high well-being and high engagement, you are likely to have high performance. So let's look at this framework in more details. So there are two dimensions to this framework. It's looking at well-being in terms of the psychological health, the resilience of your people, the stress levels of your people, and their sense of purpose. And how it's measured is looking at validated well-being, burnout, flourishing scales. It's looking at those scales. And I must say that when you're measuring ROE, you again must know where you want to go. So you must know where you want to go. So I work with a number of organizations that will say things like, wow, you know what? Our engagement scores have increased by 15%, or have increased by 20%. So you must establish, what do you want it to be? If your well-being scores are at a certain point now, what do you want it to be? So the second dimension is engagement. And here, engagement is referring to energy, enthusiasm, commitment to work, and organizational goals. How is it measured? I must remind us that there are so many tools. Okay, so you have the Gallup style engagement, Q12 employee engagement survey. A lot of people use that. You have indicators, you have pulse surveys, you have the Mercer surveys. There are many surveys for measuring engagement. And so it's important to use a validated tool when you are measuring whether it's well-being or whether you're measuring engagement. So this slide, we're going to need a moment to take it in. At the top part of the slide, so this is the well-being and engagement framework. And as I said in the previous slide, it's looking at well-being. If you look at the top part of the slide, it's high well-being. If you look at the bottom of the slide, it's looking at low well-being. If you look at the left part of the slide, low engagement. If you look at the right side of the slide, high levels of engagement. So again, the left quadrant, you can see on the left side, people who are disconnected, top right side, highest performers, bottom left side, lowest performers, bottom right side, people who are at risk for burnout. So I'm going to take us through this very quickly. So let's start on the top right side. The top right hand corner of this quadrant. This is where you want your people to be. They are your highest performers. They have high well-being, high levels of engagement. They're flourishing. They're flourishing. You want to continue to coach. You want to continue to give them coaching to maintain and expand their capabilities. Okay, let's move to the left top hand quadrant now. Here you have people who have high well-being but low levels of engagement. They're disconnected. They're disconnected. They really need to reconnect with the meaning for their roles. They really need to reconnect. Then if you go to the bottom left-hand corner, you have people who have low well-being, and low engagement. So bottom left-hand corner now, these are your lowest performers, low well-being, low engagement. They're distressed, they're disengaged. It's a critical zone. They may actually need therapy. And you would find that sometimes you have people, organizations will send to coaching, and they'll say, oh, you need to coach this person. And the person shows up in the coaching space and says, I am just so stressed out. I can't function. They need therapy. And as a professional coach, we have a duty, an ethical responsibility to refer these kind of people to therapy. Okay? So they could receive coaching and therapy at the same time. There's no harm in that. Now, the last quadrant on the right-hand corner is people who have low well-being and high engagement. They are at risk for burnout. And I'm certain that as we go through this quarter, some of us may recognize certain people in each of these. They are functional, but they're distressed. They are distressed. They are struggling internally. They are pushing hard. They're at risk of burnout. They need urgent support to restore their energy and their resilience. So what do we need to do? We need to identify at the start where our people are. It may even be useful to recognize this before you even start. So you can even know that, what this person actually needs is even therapy to begin with, or a combination of coaching and therapy. But you need to know where you are. Then you need to know where you want to get to so you can track. So there is a formula to calculate it. Your actual outcomes. So when you administer your surveys, you then look at what is your actual outcome. You then take that away from your expected outcomes and divide it by your expected outcome and multiply by 100% to get your return on expectation. For well-being, for engagement, for motivation, whatever it is, whatever surveys you use, you need to determine where are you actually now? Where do you want to go? And then you divide that by your expected outcome, multiply by 100. And then you then track as you go along with the expectation that there will be an improvement in your ROE going forward. So I'm going to just conclude now by stating that creating value that lasts is when we actually balance the financial returns with the human impact. In every organization, every intervention, whether it's coaching, culture change, whatever we're doing, we must look beyond just the numbers. And I think we are very clear on this. We've said this. Financial returns are important, no doubt. It tells us what we gained, what was profitable, and what moved the business forward. But the real story lies also on the other side of the scale. How did the people grow? How did the teams become healthier? How maybe the organizational culture, how was it improved? How did behaviors shift? How have lives been positively affected? When we measure both our return and our impact, we get a full, honest picture of value. And then only then can leaders make decisions that are sustainable, meaningful, and aligned with purpose. And more importantly, I always say, even for the coachee, you can imagine how fulfilled they will feel when they see the measurable impact of the engagement. And they can use that in future conversations. So as you step away from today's session, I encourage you to embrace this mindset of thinking about value from both sides of the coin. So we're not just choosing between impact and return, we're measuring both. We're honoring both. We're designing both to impact our work. And that truly is how transformation will happen. That's how organizations will thrive. And that's how meaningful change is sustained. So I will pause here and check in with us. What resonated the most for you today? What has been your main takeaway? We will get to Q&A and we can dive a lot deeper. But for now, please share with us. Thank you, Benga. I can see your comment. What is your key takeaway? Thank you, Bolande. Thank you, Benedict. I'm going to pause. Thank you, Shade. Okay, thank you, Johanna. Expectations need to be measured, absolutely. That's the bridge. Thank you. Shade, the ability to measure returns on expectations. Yes, absolutely. Gloria, measurement makes the difference. Thank you. Absolutely. Femi, measuring both and constantly aligning them. That's a key word, Femi. Thank you so much for adding that. Constantly aligning. You have to align that. Align on them. I align with stakeholders. I align with line manager. I align with, I just have to keep aligning. Jimunu, thank you so much. You're most welcome. Ajuma, being able to actually measure impact in quantitative terms. Thank you. So just take your time, go through the slides, reach out if you have any questions. Tekla, ROI and ROE are both sides of the coin, absolutely. Echo says the ability to measure ROI and ROE. Thank you. How to arrive at your destinations, expectations versus return, Brighton. Samson, thank you. And Benga, thank you very much for your comments. So when we started, we said we were going to look at an introduction to ROI and ROE. And we said that at the end of our time today, you should be able to explain the distinction between return on investment, that's ROI, when you see that, and return on expectations as measures of coaching impact. We also said that we were going to look at the strategic shift, why we must measure the ROI and ROE, and that at the end of our time today, you should be able to identify the importance of measuring ROI and ROE of coaching initiatives. We also said we're going to touch on two frameworks, the coaching for performance, ROI, and the well-being and engagement framework. And that at the end of our session, you should be able to explore these frameworks and the metrics for assessing the financial and non-financial returns of coaching programs. So I'm going to pause and check if we were able to achieve what we set out to achieve today. And if we weren't, just put in the chat box. And of course, as I mentioned, we will be spending, we will have the opportunity to dive a bit deeper. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want to know one thing that you are committed to. One thing that you're committed to from today's session that you want to integrate into how you will evaluate coaching impact going forward. So this is not just what did I take away, but now what am I going to now do differently? What am I committing to that going forward? I have my mentor in the house, my training transfer effectiveness mentor, Sandra. One thing that you are committed to transfer the learning today into how you're going to evaluate coaching impact going forward. Thank you, Benga. Thank you, Tekla. Okay, you're going to Shade said you're going to determine the baseline at commencement of the coaching program. And from Coach AA, please give an example of the ROE calculation. Okay, thank you so much. So the ROE calculation, FAA, I was saying earlier that what for you is important. What is a metric that's important for you? So I was talking about engagement as an example. So you could administer a survey to determine engagement scores. And I shared some tools that you could use to do that. I shared the Gallup, for example, or the Mercer survey, or you create a survey if you can't use one of the scientific and validated ones to see where are your engagement levels. So you identify your actual. But as an organization, you may have a desired engagement score that you want. So there's an organization we work with, and they track the engagement scores every single year. And because it's so important to them, they hire us at EZ37 Solutions to go around the country to have focus group discussions with all their different state representatives, all the different I'm trying not to use the factories, and meet with them there and consider what's going on in terms of engagement and gather that data, put it together to let the individuals in the organization know that they are being heard, because engagement is important to this organization. So they get the actual data, but they know what they want it to be. Maybe they want their engagement scores to be at a minimum of 85%, and maybe it's showing up currently at 70%. So they have to do that subtraction and then divide it to be able, and then multiply by 100 to be able to see the percentage return on expectation in terms of engagement. So for you, it could be you administer a tool to determine motivation or whatever is important to you. And then you look at your desired, divide it, multiply by 100 using that formula, and you get your ROE. So I need to know if that answered your question, FAA. Please let me know. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Anna, for bringing that forward. So Samson says to insist with sponsoring organizations to establish the baseline before the coaching engagements, and to also agree on the methodology for calculating the ROI and ROE after coaching engagements. Absolutely. Samson, guess what? And I said in the house is my transfer mentor, Sandra. I no longer feel any pressure from the organizations to get started. I'm like, please, we need to pause. We need to pause and identify where we are at. We need to pause and identify where it is we want to go to. We need to pause and gather some baseline data. So I really celebrate you, Samson, for dropping that in the chat box as a commitment going forward. Tekla, thank you so much, and everyone else who has shared, Adeoju, thank you very much for that. As I mentioned, there are some references for further reading, and this was made available for you, and it is so rich, and it really gives us more depth and breadth on the subject of ROI and ROE, which time will not permit us to go into today. Now, if you do want to learn more about coaching, professional coaching, on the right side of the screen is our professional coaching certification program. We believe that coaching changes lives, makes the world a better place, transforms individuals, transforms cultures. It's just so powerful. And so we have our coach certification program coming up on the 18th of January, the level 1 program that's accredited by the International Coaching Federation. So if this is something you want to find out more about, I believe a link will be put in the chat box for you to complete. Okay, Gwenga has dropped his email address. We'll pick that up. Then on the left side of the screen is facilitating learning online and in person. We have that course starting on the 20th of February. And if you want to be a trainer, I am a certified trainer through the IFC, LPI, and I wouldn't be able to bring this to you with so much confidence if I hadn't gone through that program. So if you also want to be facilitating, and I give a shout out to the facilitators in the house, certified facilitators in the house. I see you and I celebrate you all. If you would like to connect with me, please take a screenshot of my contact details, which are on the screen. My LinkedIn profile is there, as well as my email, company website. I'm passionate about coaching, and so you can see it's ezcoaching.org. And of course, my WhatsApp number is there. If you want to have a confidential conversation, I'd love to hear from you. So now I'm going to take any questions that we have. And at the same time, I'm going to say thank you very much whilst I take any questions that you have. You have been an incredible, engaging, caring, participatory audience. And I really appreciate every single one of you for the comments, the questions, and the contributions. So let me know what questions we may have. Thank you.
Adaora, I see that Gbenga has raised a hand, so perhaps Gbenga, I'm going to unmute
Okay.
you so you can
Okay.
voice. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Gbenga, you have been unmuted. Let's go ahead. Hello? Gbenga, we cannot hear you. All right. Maybe that was in error. If not, I would be happy to give it another try. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? This is your great opportunity to discuss any questions you have about coaching or facilitation for that matter.
Absolutely. And whilst we are waiting, if you look in the chat box, you will see an expression of interest form if you want to know more about, as Anna has said, coaching or facilitation, or you want to dive a bit deeper into ROI and ROE conversation. I'll be happy to engage with you on that. So you can fill out the links. And I do hope I have not, taken us, made it complicated in any way, especially the figures. I've tried to keep it simple. Thank you.
There is a question from Joanna. What about timing as a variable to include in these measurements? How to include time?
Aha. Thank you, Johanna. And I think that is so important because behavioral change takes time. And so whether you're measuring ROI or ROE, you have got to allow time. Somebody who is decades old, suddenly you want to change their behavior. It's not going to happen in a 2-day or in a 3-day or a 3-session engagement. It will take time. And so the minimum number of sessions, I'd say, is at least 6. And the minimum duration, I would say, is 3 months. I work with 6 months. But if you're doing 3 months and you're having 6 coaching sessions, then you could work with that to begin with as a starter if you want to support people on a low budget or so on. So Johanna, please let me know if that answers your question. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any
All
more
right.
questions,
So,
comments?
mhm.
I guess not. All right.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back over to you, Anna, and I want to just once again thank everyone. You've been an incredible, incredible audience, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here, for contributing to this conversation today. Obviously, we need to take it to another level, but it's a very good start. Thank you so much. Anna, over to you.
In the meantime, I also put a link to the SurveyMonkey, so it would be appreciative if you could share your thoughts about today's session. Obviously, please fill in the interest form that Adaora's team has shared. With that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today, for spending time with us. Adaora, always a pleasure to have you conduct our webinars. We always learn so much from you. Very engaging, very insightful webinars. So I would truly appreciate that. And it's actually December. It's the end of the year. So I would like to wish everyone, whatever you celebrate, whether it's Hanukkah or Christmas, the New Year, whatever you celebrate, I would like to wish you all happy holidays, and we will see you in 2026. So stay well and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.